Many factors affect the provision of education. While subject matter and methods of teaching are perhaps the most obvious features, the school environment is also extremely significant. The area in which learning takes place influences its efficiency. It should provide a suitable setting for learning, promote comfort and participation, and maximise understanding. There are 5 key areas that we will consider in this piece: classroom layout, technology, outdoor learning, school design, and communal areas. In trying to decide what the ideal school, in terms of the environment, would be, we have sourced a range of opinions. We spoke to primary school children at Countess Wear Community School, through to university students, as well as gathering information from studies and academics. We aim to use this information to decide what the optimum school environment is and define a potential ideal school. The first area to look at is the layout of the classroom. As the hub for learning, it is important that it functions well and engages students. There are some key issues to consider: use of the space, ability to see the board and the teacher's visibility of the students, easy access to all the desks, and provision for students with disabilities, i.e. visual impairments or students who require wheelchairs. Whilst there are endless possibilities for the arrangement of desks, they can be grouped under 3 main types: rows, groups, or horseshoes. Arranging the desks in rows is perhaps the most traditional setup. It is one of the most efficient uses of space, as many rows can be used and the empty, wasted space is limited. It reduces the distractions from other students and promotes focus on the teacher and the board. It is a more organised and official layout for a classroom. However, there are difficulties. For students seated against the walls or towards the corners of the classroom, it can be difficult for teachers to reach them and provide assistance. The linear nature of the desks can impair the visibility of students towards the rear of the classroom. Although this is the traditional and still common method, perhaps it is not most effective. Some classrooms choose to arrange the desks into groups. This brings obvious benefits for group project work. It also makes it easier for the students to help each other and work together, and promotes discussion within the table groups. Teachers should be careful to try and avoid students having their backs to the board and teaching area. Sometimes this cannot be prevented if the use of the space should be maximised. It can be a difficult concession to make. Another difficulty is the risk of distractions and too much discussion amongst the groups. It may take away some of the focus from the teacher, with students busy working with each other. A newer and more unusual method is described as the horseshoe shape. It allows for the entire class to be involved in discussion and the teacher to access all students. It is a layout where it's easy for the students to move in order to work with each other. However, the space is the most obvious issue with this layout, as the centre of the horseshoe is wasted. This is a problem that can be dealt with by variations of the traditional horseshoe model through putting some desks and students within that central area. Across the range of age groups that we spoke to, the horseshoe and variations of was the most popular arrangement, followed by groups, with rows being the least popular. Regarding the horseshoe model, students liked the fact that no one had their backs to the central point of learning. It also is a better provision for discussion and working together than desks simply set out in rows. What was particularly interesting was the Year 5 students, aged 9, of Countess Wear Community School, who appreciated the horseshoe and to an extent the rows. Group setups were often used in their classroom, but they felt that this could impair sight of the board and that they were lacking their own space. The pupils liked the idea of the horseshoe, which they considered more grown up. Research into the impact of class layout on learning is varied. There are conflicting opinions on whether or not it impacts on grades that students will achieve. Whilst Millard and Stimpson suggest it does not, Marks, Furrer and Hartig believe that it does make a difference and students who sit near the front achieve higher. There is general consensus that the most appropriate layout does vary depending on the type of lesson which is taking place. Wong and Wong suggests that the seating arrangement must match the lesson purpose, grouped seating for discussion or rows for independent work as appropriate. Each of the layouts have their benefits and drawbacks. Some students would prefer certain arrangements over others, and different tasks or subjects are perhaps better suited to particular setups. It is therefore difficult to choose which would be the best. What do you think? In the modern age, technology has developed rapidly. It has become part of everyday life and an important life skill. This revolutionary development has, obviously, had an impact on the school environment. Smartboards and computers are now commonplace in schools. The use of iPads and laptops are also being introduced and becoming more frequently used. There are clear benefits to bringing technology into the school environment. It teaches students a fundamental life skill through the use of computers. These skills are required in the workplace or higher education, for example, in being able to effectively research. They are also becoming the most common method of communication, either via social networking sites or emails. Research and studying through technology can be more effective. It allows for quick access to material which may either be unavailable or difficult to access in books. The internet contains the most up-to-date information and resources, allowing the most topical and current issues to be studied in depth. Technology, through games on smartboards for example, are a more interactive and fun method of learning, which is particularly useful for visual learners. This could lead to a learning experience which are memorable, embedding the topic studied. There are also difficulties and concerns to consider. Technology, most notably computers, also presents many distractions. The wealth of activities available on computers could prevent students from focusing on the lesson or the issue being studied. It is a situation which would require careful monitoring in order to be effective. Becoming overly reliant on electronic devices is also a potential problem. If students are only used to having the answers to their issues easily accessible through the internet, they may fail to develop the independence or resourcefulness to solve problems when these facilities are not available. There is also a threat to literacy. Predictive texting, autocorrect and spell checking could limit students learning basic English skills. For students who do not have access to these kind of facilities at home, they risk feeling alienated or at a disadvantage. There are more practical concerns too. Technology can be unreliable. Power cuts or difficulties in using devices can cause lengthy delays to lessons. Focusing on screens for lengthy periods of time is not good for vision. It is also important that teachers are confident and adept in using the technology and can deal with any technical difficulties that arise. The majority of feedback received opted for a balance between new technologies and more traditional methods. Students across age groups, right through from primary school children of Countess Wear Community School to university students, appreciated the need for books and writing to still form a significant part of the learning experience. In balance, they also welcomed the use of computers, recognising the need to develop a good grasp of basic IT skills. It was noted that learning through books and teachers is perhaps preferable initially to provide the basic understanding of a topic, and that the use of computers, through further research or games, was most appropriate to reinforce and develop the basic understanding. Research on the use of technology consistently raises two key points. Technology is inevitable, irrevocable development, which must be integrated into the school environment. Using technology can improve the speed and interactive nature of learning, but it is entirely dependent on the teacher using it effectively. See Lawless and Pellegrino. Maharaja Sharma supported this and emphasised the potential that the use of technology has across the curriculum, from research for literature through to conducting experiments in science. Technology is a part of everyday life. That is not something which can be questioned. However, the extent to which it should be used in schools is an important one to consider. Particularly during the summer term, the opportunity to learn outside provides for a different, rare learning experience. It allows for practical learning, classes to take place outdoors, and for experiments to be conducted. Learning outdoors can be enjoyable, particularly for more visual and practical learners. The hands-on experience of experiments and practical experiences is stimulating and memorable. Fresh air and sunshine provide a more welcoming atmosphere for learning, as children can often feel trapped in warm classrooms during periods of good weather. However, there are problems. It can be impractical and make learning more difficult. If the weather is too extreme, either too hot or windy, it can be difficult for students to concentrate or work effectively. Working outside can be an exciting experience, and there are a wealth of distractions. This could again hinder the efficiency of learning outdoors. Time is wasted making the decision to, and then taking the students outside for a lesson. Making the decision to conduct a lesson outdoors often also requires the lesson to be adapted, and therefore may not provide all the information required. 80% of people we asked, having reflected on their own experiences, would like outdoor learning. On the whole, students enjoy lessons outdoors. In the majority of schools, this is a rare event, which perhaps increases the fond memories of the occasions when students have been taught outside. Much of the feedback we received recognised the difficulties with outdoor learning. Students acknowledged that perhaps whilst these lessons were more enjoyable than in a typical classroom setting, they were often less efficient and less was learned. Countess Wear Community School is an almost unique example of learning taking place outdoors on a regular and successful basis. Countess Wear has a forest school, including a cabin, dens, campfires, vegetable garden and teepee. Once a week, each class spends a morning or afternoon in the forest school, learning about nature, animals, cooking and art. It was hugely popular with the students and an aspect of their school that they are exceptionally proud of. They explained how they learned important life skills and built a real team spirit working together on projects, such as building their dens or cultivating the vegetable garden. It demonstrated that outdoor learning can be conducted in a highly beneficial way, but this is perhaps best achieved by focusing on skills which are most appropriate to be learned outdoors. Outdoor learning is clearly a popular activity. There is also obvious benefits to conducting certain lessons outside, e.g. sciences or geography. However, is this an activity which requires more thoughtful preparation? Can any lesson be conducted outdoors and still be as effective? The design of the school building is a very broad topic. The school building should be an attractive site to encourage and motivate students. It should also allow easy movement around the site. There are a wealth of areas to think about: decor, posters, lighting, open spaces, the range of colours used, curved walls. Issues to be considered in particular are the colours used in the school and the architecture and layout of the school building. Colours have a subtle but notable impact on the learning environment. There is a wealth of studies into the impact of colours. Walker, in 1991, wrote The Power of Colour, exploring these issues. He notes green and blue to be calming colours, but believes that blue may be in fact too calming. This is also a feature of other dark colours. They lower stress and increase feelings of peacefulness. In contrast, brighter colours are stimulating and spark creative behaviour. This can, for colours as bright as red, lead to anxiety or nervousness. However, more neutral bright colours, such as yellow, are considered by Walker to be the optimum colours for learning. It is worth noting that despite this research, the impact of colour is still largely subjective and would perhaps vary between age groups. The building design and layout plays an important part in the ease that the students and teachers move around the building. The grouping of classrooms and position of other rooms in the school affect how easily students can find their classrooms and the time it takes them to move between areas. This is also affected by the size of the site, whether it is a compact or a well-spread school. A more open-plan building promotes visibility and increases the natural light, presenting a more attractive and collaborative environment. It was acknowledged that the school design is important. Students will obviously spend a significant amount of their time in this environment, and if it is somewhere that they feel positive about, it will have a knock-on positive effect on their studying. Students like open-planned areas with wide corridors, big spaces, without having to travel too far to get to lessons. One feature commented on in particular was the importance of outside spaces and green areas to promote a welcoming, attractive site. The variety in school designs is almost limitless, and what is best almost entirely subjective. It is therefore difficult to decide what would be the ideal design. But what do you think? There are a huge number of communal areas in the school. These are important spaces which students can use for independent study and free time. Examples of communal areas include study rooms, sports grounds, common rooms, picnic areas, play areas, fields, and libraries. These are easiest to consider in terms of study spaces, recreational spaces, and how best to run a staff room. An interesting issue to consider is the role of the staff room. Traditionally perceived as a very separate area, there is potential for this to be a more open communal space. Some believe the difference between staff and students should be maintained, and it is appropriate for staff to have their own space. If, however, there was a place where staff and students could mix, it would certainly be easier for them to communicate and perhaps encourage better relationships between teachers and pupils. Each student is an individual and they work best in different environments. Some prefer the silence of a library and removal from any distractions. However, it means any small sounds within this quiet environment are much more distracting. Other students prefer to work whilst listening to music. However, the Advising and Learning Assistance Centre suggests that studying with headphones in is more distracting than having music on in the background, as headphones are more intrusive. Sometimes discussion and teamwork is appropriate, and students would want spaces available to do this. There are a range of possibilities which can be provided by schools. Communal areas to relax in are also important. These include indoor common rooms where students can sit, relax and talk to their friends. There are also indoor eating spaces, food halls for example, where lunch is served. There are a wealth of potential outdoor areas available, some suitable for different age groups. Playgrounds are a good outdoor space. These areas can include swings and climbing frames in lower schools. Fields are also useful outdoor areas. They allow students to release energy and present a contrast to being sat in the classroom. Picnic areas or spaces for eating lunch outside are also important. Students can enjoy the good weather and a chance to get outside, again a break from the classroom. Students are fond of their outdoor spaces, and there are frequent references to the idea of blowing off steam and being able to release restless energy. An indoor common room was something that many schools only provide for sixth form students. Younger years mentioned that they would like an indoor space to relax with their friends, rather than just relying on the dinner hall. Some students also suggest that study rooms are often uncontrolled and not the best place to work in comparison to the library. Countess Wear Community School had a wealth of communal areas which we saw on our tour of the school. These catered for the range of ages at the primary school, with separate playgrounds for nursery, Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2. Each playground had different activities in it, including climbing frames and paintings on the floor, appropriate for each age group. They had a large field which was divided for playing football and for other students to run around on. There were also sheltered picnic areas so that children could eat outside if the weather was good. Indoors, there was a hall where the students ate, an open-plan library with lots of comfortable spaces for the children to sit and read, and other rooms for students to go to where they needed time to calm down and relax. The students suggested that an indoor communal area would be a nice addition to the school to provide an alternative indoor area for relaxing, other than the classroom. However, they were very proud of their school and comfortable in the environment. It is very important that there are communal spaces in the school, ones which promote growth, both group work and provide for relaxation. There are many options and combinations, but what do you think a school needs? There are many factors to take into account when examining the most appropriate school environment. However, it is not as simple as choosing whatever method is perceived or demonstrated by research to be most effective. There are limitations, issues which must be taken into account and can limit some of the possibilities we have discussed. All students learn differently. Some enjoy interactive learning with role plays and acting. Others prefer to do group work and projects. Alternatively, students can enjoy independent work and doing individual research. It is difficult to cater for all these different types of learners, and it raises issues about whether a particular classroom layout or learning outdoors will always be appropriate. Health and safety is a constant overriding concern. When allowing for learning to take place outdoors, and freedom in communal areas is worth taking into account that any risks must be avoided and the safety of children is always the top concern. A school is clearly limited by the size of the site. They will only have a certain amount of space available. It may not be possible for the entire range of communal areas, a large open plan building and a range of green space to be built. As a result, there must be a compromise. The most important factor and limit on the possibilities is funding. Technology and building work is clearly very expensive. Difficult financial times and tight school budgets would make it tough for an ideal school environment to be created. Taking into account all these factors, the classroom layout, technology, outdoor learning, school design, communal areas, and the limitations, what would you consider the ideal school? These are some of our thoughts. We believe the horseshoe model is the suitable compromise between rows and groups. Although we recognise that in a large class this layout may be inefficient, variations of the horseshoe can make use of the central area that is otherwise wasted space. We would also suggest that easily movable furniture would allow different lessons to adopt different layouts depending on which is most appropriate. We would also suggest that foldable walls in some areas of the school could be a useful feature. It would allow classes to merge and work together as a large group on certain projects. In terms of technology, we would retain the traditional whiteboards as well as using modern smartboards. We recognise that smartboards can make learning more interactive and enjoyable, but understand they're not completely reliable. We would consider using iPads, which could be brought into the classroom when needed. This would prevent the difficulty of moving the students from one classroom to a computer suite. A feature of Countess Wear Community School was automatic locking doors. In order to get in and out of the main entrance, a code was required. This allowed more freedom to be given to the students within the school as they were safe and couldn't easily leave the premises. We would include an outdoor classroom, making learning outside more planned and in a more suitable layout, while still able to enjoy the outside environment. Having benches and a board outside would make it easier for students to work and make it more appropriate for all subjects. A shelter to cover the board and benches would protect students and teachers from the sunshine, if it is too strong, or any light showers. For more traditional outside learning, not in the classroom, should be based on skills which are more appropriate to the setting, such as nature and animals. In terms of communal areas, we recognise that staff need their own space and that the boundaries should be maintained between students and teachers. However, we would suggest that there should be a space next to the staff room where students and staff could hold discussions, rather than the uncomfortable lingering in the staff room door which can occur. In terms of other communal areas, the obvious library, we would include a range of study rooms for different types of study, group, individual, silent study, and separate playgrounds, accommodating for different age groups, picnic areas, and indoor communal areas. In terms of the school design, we believe that colours are a very subjective issue. Due to this, and from the suggestions of research, we would adopt neutral and relaxed colours. This would also give the opportunity for individual choices in each classroom to put up bright displays, if wished, to promote creativity. We would sort classes by departments to make different areas of the school clear in a relatively compact building to provide for quick movement between lessons. This would also give us more area for green space